Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Ishwaranandana Rachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrtajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Bhaktivendanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Bhaktivendanta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Go Premanande. Okay, I'm still live, huh? Yes, good. All right, nice, welcome. This is exciting. Modern days Bhagavad Gita class. I'm just actually embarking on the journey. As Prabhu was just saying, I used to travel a lot. I lived with my wife in Byron Bay, Australia for long as a base, and from there we were traveling quite all over the world and teaching yoga. So Ashtanga yoga, asana, and these sort of things. And then moving back to Germany now and still teaching in Radhadesh and different places, but obviously due to a certain individual called Corona, all this live interaction with people got cancelled. So now is the time for like moving online. I'm still getting used to it, but we'll just try and I'll see how it flows. It's interesting because normally in giving classes, it's very much between the interaction also. Like my Guru Maharaj always used to say, or uses to say, giving a class is like a meditation. We're sort of trying to lock into Krishna consciousness. We're trying to lock our consciousness, connect our consciousness to like divine wisdom. And of course, as the one speaking, we are in a very fortunate position because somewhere there's Krishna, very eager to share information with the whole world. And then on the other side, there is the kind devotees who are very eager to sit there and listen. And as speakers, we are just sort of in the fortunate position to sit in between. So I'm always very glad to sit on the side, but yeah, I'm excited to see how it flows. And because a lot of the energy that comes up in class and the wisdom that is generated in class is through Sankirtan, is through a group effort. So I guess it works also like that, because really already when we are in our material bodies, we are locked into some sort of internet system, right? This is already Facebook that we are expressing ourselves through. It's just the medium, this body, it's not really ourselves. So why shouldn't it work online? So anyway, first time I do something like this. Thank you for the opportunity. Let's see what comes out. So we're reading, obviously, from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's the Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivendanta Swami Prabhupada. And we will be reading today from the 3rd chapter, verse 39, which I'll just open up. But before we fully get into this, we just chant a little prayer to open the space and to connect to the divine, as we say sometimes. So it's a very nice mantra that we commonly chant before opening class. It's actually the mantra that Sukadeva Goswami himself, the speaker of the most popular and most authentic commentary to the most important philosophical scripture ever, one could say, the Vedanta Sutra, is choosing to open his speech, right? Sukadeva Goswami gave also a class 5,000 years back. His class took a little longer. It took 7 days non-stop. We won't do that tonight. We'll stick with like 45 minutes. I think it's quite exhausting already for the listener part. But Shukadev spoke 7 days to King Parikshit to enlighten him on all aspects of spiritual knowledge. And he decided to open his speech with this very mantra, which is the start of the Shrimad Bhagavatam. So we can recite it. It's very beautiful. It's Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And it's just to explain the mantra a little bit, because just for the devotees, some of my students, yoga students, might also be joining here. So I'm explaining a little bit the basics as well. And this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, is very nice because it's very specific. It's basically opening the space, inviting a very specific personality. Om, of course, is a very famous mantra. We know it all through the Vedas. Pretty much every significant mantra in the Vedas starts with Om. The Upanishads start with Om. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam, and so on, right? Om is like an initiating mantra. It is invoking spirit itself. Om is sort of the sound representation of spiritual reality at large. A very broad mantra, just inviting spirit in. So with chanting the mantra Om, we're basically knocking on the door of transcendence. And we're knocking, we're opening the possibility for spiritual experience, Om. And then how are we knocking on the door of transcendence? Namo. Now this is our mood. We know it from Namaste, for example. Namo means in a humble mood. I give my obeisances. I am in humility knocking at that door. I'm knocking at the door as a servant of transcendence. So Om, knocking on the door. Namo, in humility, in the spirit of service. And then on whose door am I knocking? Okay, the door of spirit, but now which form of spirit, which expression of spirit? And this is Bhagavate, Bhagavan, as we know from the Bhagavad Gita, same word. Bhagavan basically means God. It's one of the famous Sanskrit words. Bhagavan and Ishvara are the two most used words in the yoga world and the Bhakti yoga world, Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras, these scriptures to describe God. So we're knocking on the door of God, not bad. But then, of course, God is unlimited. How many names, how many forms does he have? Does this even he, or is it he and she? Yes. Is he and she with unlimited names, unlimited forms? So let's be even more specific, not only on the door of God, but on the door of Vasudeva. And Vasudeva is the son of Vasudev. Vasudev is the father of Vasudev. So Vasudev is the name of Krishna. So Om, opening to spirit, knocking on the door of transcendence. How? In humility. Namo. On which door? Bhagavan, the door of God. And which form of God? Vasudev, Krishna. Anyway, so nice mantra. Let's chant it. So if you like, you can use Anjali Mudra, hands in front of chest, shoulders are soft. And let's do call response. So I'll chant the mantra and you can respond. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So with that invocation, starting to read from Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, text 39. This is in the 3rd chapter, the Karma Yoga chapter, where Krishna explains how to properly act in this world. And a very curious verse we have today. Let's see what we can do with it. So I'll just chant it. I think there's no point here in call and response, so we'll keep it simple, this part. Avritam kyanam etena, kyanino nitya vairina, Kamarupena kaunteya dushpurena nalena cha. Word for word, the word avritam is covered. Jnanam, very interesting translation that we choose here. Wait, I don't see you anymore. Why? I don't see you. Can you still hear me? Can I get feedback? Am I out? Oh, okay. No, still works. You can still hear me, right?
Ja, wir hören alles.
Jnanam, pure consciousness. Very interesting word Prabhupada chooses here, because what does jnana normally mean? It's a very famous word we use. Jnana. This means intelligence. It's the intellect. Very commonly translated like that, and used in most contexts. But Prabhupada decides on the translation, pure consciousness. It's very interesting how Prabhupada sometimes translates the Bhagavad Gita very specifically. We'll come back to that later. Etena is by this. And then Jnaninaha, of the knower. Nitya Vairina, the eternal enemy. And what is this eternal enemy? Kama Rupena. Rupa is the form, and Kama means lust. In the form of lust. Kaunteya, the son of Kunti, the one we speak to, this is Arjuna. And then Dushpurena, never to be satisfied. This Kama Rupena is never to be satisfied. Annalena, by the fire. And Cha is also. So the translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So the wise living entity's pure consciousness, and we could be daring and even also connected in the context of pure intelligence, becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So Prabhupada writes a purport. It is said in the Manu Smriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. Interesting. Lust cannot be satisfied through sense enjoyment, just like fire cannot be extinguished by adding more fuel to it. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex. And thus this material world is called Maitunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. So Prabhupada says that advancement, that we define advancement as prolonging the life of a human being and therefore prolonging our capacity to enjoy in this body. This is how we define advancement in the modern world. Therefore, the lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. Nice point Prabhupada is making. Similar point, anyway, we'll come back to it. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Haribol. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya tuspurena nalena cha. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Om Agyantimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Narati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahagana Ragunatanvitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam Schaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Chagapati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarupescha Kripasanubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Prabhupada is, or Krishna in this part of the Bhagavad Gita, is now pointing out the most entangling enemy that we have to actually turn our life into karma yoga. This chapter is about karma yoga. And karma yoga is the science of basically transforming all our activities into yoga, performing activities within this world, but doing them in a way that they're actually not entangling, but that they're actually liberating. And now here, toward the end and quite important part of this chapter, Krishna is now pointing out the main enemy to that endeavor. The endeavor of karma yoga is transcend our experience in this material world. And the greatest enemy toward that achievement is lust, karma. And of course, Prabhupada gives a prime example of where lust is very prominent, and this is within sex life. And we will talk a little bit about why. But first of all, let's maybe talk a little bit about lust itself. What does it actually mean? What is actually its context in reality as we see it from the eyes of the Bhagavad Gita? Very commonly, the word lust in modern days is especially used in the context of sex life. But the word karma is actually much more deep than that, much more toward the root of the problem. Mm-hmm. So lust in the material world does not only have to relate to sex life. Lust, in a sense, this enemy of lust, means to engage in an activity for our personal sense enjoyment. Eating an apple, for example, for the pure sake of taking it for our pure enjoyment of the senses, without connecting it to the context of spirit by, for example, offering it, is also considered lusty in the Vedic context. This is an interesting point just to understand that lust is more an underlying principle of our relationship with the material world. It is in that sense a state of consciousness. And now if we go back to the word-for-word translation of Prabhupada, we see sort of that point hammered in a sense by him through translating the word jnanam here through pure consciousness. That lust is actually a principle that is a misguided or misdirected consciousness. If we are lusty in that sense, we are looking at the material world in the wrong context. Being lusty at the root means that we are looking at the material world thinking that this, what we are perceiving, is made for us. Is made for us in the center of the enjoyment that is possible in the context of this world. Is that making sense so far? We'll come back to sex life. Don't worry, it's still coming. Don't be disappointed. But yeah, we're first trying to establish the rules of the game here. So lust, karma, is a much deeper principle than just sex life. It is the very idea that this material experience is for my personal sense enjoyment. Good. I am engaged in the yoga world, and I'm quite, a lot engaged with the Yoga Sutras, and I find it very interesting. Patanjali also points out this, and he's basically saying that there's two types of souls in this world. And he says it very simply, as a sutra should, the inward turned and the outward turned. And he says that the yogi should become inwardly turned, should look for what's the essence of this experience and not look for the outward experience. So looking for the outward experience, thinking that this material world itself is in some way connected to the satisfaction of our true self, means we have lusty consciousness. Our consciousness is predominated by the idea that we can enjoy this material world independently. Just me, this material world, Bob's your uncle, deal done, I'm going to be happy. Right. So now, from all the activities that we can be engaged in, the one that is the most engaging in that sort of relationship of an enjoyer with the material world is sex life. That's why it's often sex life. It's such a typical way it's devoted. It is sex, that's, I don't know if the word sex life is commonly used outside our ISKCON frame. But, this activity of man and woman engaging in sex is the most challenging activity we can be engaged in, to not consider one's personal enjoyment as the predominant factor of this activity. Yes. And this is very logical. This is not even, this can be very logically understood, because the experience of sex, the actual experience of that activity is just simply so overwhelming. It's so engaging on all levels. All senses are, for example, fully engaged, right? The sense of smell, which is the element of earth. The element of earth is fully engaged. The sense of taste, which is water. We see, which is the fire. The sense of seeing is fully engaged. There's sound, there's hearing, right? There's feeling, of course, obviously. So all 5 material senses are fully engaged. And to an extent which is sort of, where very, very overwhelming, very extremely engaging. So it's often used as a prime example of the most, enjoyable, or most from a lust consciousness point of view, the most enjoyable activity that is out there. And therefore, many, many schools of transcendentalism warn us from this activity. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita is one of the few transcendental books where it's even considered that engaging in sex can be okay if done in the right consciousness. Most books of transcendental mystics, it's completely out. For example, back to the Yoga Sutras, the Ashtanga Yoga system, celibacy is a baseline. It's like, if you want to, by your own strength, transcend this material experience, just forget about it. Just don't even do it. And this is one of the root principles of the Ashtanga Yoga system. One of the yamas is brahmacharya. And brahmacharya, even though in modern terms often translated as something like regulation in all things, that's not the translation. Brahmacharya itself means Brahma Achar. We are moving toward the Brahman. We're trying to move toward the Brahman. We're trying to move toward transcendence. We're trying to bring all our activities in transcendental context. And therefore, indirectly, it means let go of anything which hinders that way, that movement toward Brahman. And the prime point of that, which is very clear by the traditional commentaries, is sex life, because it is such a strong engagement in the material energy. In yoga, we are trying to transform our consciousness towards spiritual reality. So let's let go of any anchors, any roots that keep us bound to the material experience. And again, the prime experience, which is just overwhelmingly, enjoyable from a lusty material point of view, is sex life. So let's go of that, so that we don't have that weight wearing us down as we are trying to transcend our consciousness. And this is, of course, not only found in the Vedas, in many Buddhist schools, even in many Christian and Muslim schools and so on. Sex life is very restricted, is very specifically done, if even at all. So there seems to be a reason for this, yes. And I mean, it is a very overwhelming thing, pulling our mind into certain thought patterns. This is very clear. Because if you've ever fallen in love, and met the one, right? Then what do you think of for the next few months? And not that it's a bad thing, but just from the point of view, I want to transcend my consciousness and completely get out of the material context. Well, then being engaged with someone that we become physically very attracted to, strategically, is not a very good idea. I'm not dismissing the point that this can happen, and this can be wonderful, and this can be engaged in Krishna service, as we like to say, and so on. All good and well, but let's just try to understand the principle, why sex is often so hammered. It's often shouldn't be done, and so on like that. Right? So just understanding that through its very the very essence of this activity, we can really understand, yes, it is a very engaging experience on all levels, and it's a very fully experienced through our physical senses, and it's in their pretty much maximum capacity. Now, and just the story is coming to mind, which is sort of, Prabhupada made this point again and again, and he's making the point in this purport that sex, in the material world, the center of all activities is sex. It's powerful, huh? It's like these. I am a yoga teacher, and it's very powerful how much sexuality is predominant in the yoga shalas, in the yoga spaces, where oftentimes it's, sometimes we have to remind the students that this is yoga and not Instagram, that it's not about how we look on the mat. My dear teacher, Gokula Chandra, he sometimes talks about the people that are engaged in butt yoga, the yoga to get a beautiful butt, right? This is also there in this world. But so it's a very strong statement, and just one story is coming to mind where Brahmananda, one of Prabhupada's dearest students, and probably one of the coolest devotees that has ever decided to walk around on this earth, he came to Prabhupada, and he was complaining to Prabhupada about the stupidity of his teacher in philosophy class in university. Because this teacher, Brahmananda said to Prabhupada, he sort of claimed, that the driving force of the inspiration, the driving inspiration for any person on this planet is sex life. And Brahmananda said, and I argued with him so hard, and he said, no, the driving force of any person within this world is a deep desire for spiritual experience, that spirit is the thing that is driving us, and not the desire for sex life. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, Brahmananda, your teacher was right. Yeah, it is a very romantic idea that spiritual craving is the root desire, but for those that are outwardly turned, as Patanjali says it so simply, it is not. The driving force is sex life. And again, sex life is not only the physical act, it happens on so many levels, right? We can be very much engaged in sex life as we are chanting our japa very nicely in the mornings and sitting on cushion, if our mind is playing the games that are related to that, right? It's not so easy. It's really like a shackle. I have very personal experience when I first became a brahmachari, because somewhere in my earlier youth, I joined relatively early into the ashram, sort of end of 17. But the time that I spent before that, it wasn't so sattvic, let me say that. I might have been engaged in a few things which are not so, we wouldn't maybe want to share so much, like in partying and taking a lot of weird substances which change your consciousness quite drastically, and all these sort of things. And obviously also sex was something that I was exploring quite a lot in my youth, in my passionate times, which are not quite over yet, but we're getting there. And it was amazing when I then became a brahmachari and basically went on cold turkey, one could say, right? I went from like being fully engaged in this material context into, all right, this is all Maya, this is all silly, and like I'm just moving away. Well, oftentimes I would chant my japa in the morning, and basically there was porn running in my mind while trying to meditate on the holy name. And then if I remember this right now, I really understand why Prabhupada writes shackles here. Shackles are something which hold us involuntarily. Like as a brahmachari, I didn't want to think about sex. I didn't want to. I wanted to think about Krishna and chant the holy name very nicely, right? But it just didn't work because the shackles, literally the shackles of sex life were holding me back. If you have like heavy metal shackles, well, you might want to move away, but it's just not possible. And this was very much my experience. To a point that in Zurich Temple, I was actually asking a good friend, like, I'm going nuts. What can I do? This is crazy. I don't want this. And then he gave me some very valuable advice on how we can look at these shackles once they're already established. So we'll look at that in a moment. How can we work with these shackles that we might all experience to one degree or the other? It is the main energy. Lust is the main energy which holding us back. Just to define lust a little bit more, lust is the perverted reflection of love, right? The 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the first verse is explaining how the material world is like a banyan tree with its roots up and its crown down. And then Prabhupada asked the question, where do you find such a tree? Well, at the shore of a lake. It's a reflection. So the Krishna gives this material world, he gives the metaphor of a reflection. And it is a reflection of the spiritual world. So all the energies, all the reality, all the details in the spiritual world are reflected in this material pool. And lust is also, pure love is also therefore reflected in this material pool. And this reflection, this perverted reflection of pure love, we call lust, karma. So again, it's a much deeper principle than just sex. It goes much deeper than that. But sex is sort of the tip of the iceberg, the one easiest to identify and also strongest to take us over. That's why it's often mentioned as a prime example. So really the process of Krishna consciousness is trying to work with this perverted energy we have and retransform it back into its actual position, transform karma into bhakti, into devotion, transform karma into prema, into pure love, into the pure essence of actually appreciating others, which we might define a little bit more depending on time later. So now, it seems like quite a dead end sometimes where we get in, like when we are really confronted with how much we are shackled by material existence. It can be a very frustrating experience for many of us. It can be a very frustrating experience to, for example, practice or trying to practice a devotional practice of bhakti or a yoga practice or a meditation practice for a very long time and seeing that certain things just don't go away or certain experiences just don't come to the surface. It can be sometimes quite a frustrating experience. And one of the insights that I got about this frustrating experience is that sometimes in my personal practice, I sort of was waiting for these things to simply happen. I sometimes envisioned a yoga practice as being something passive that I have to just practice on a daily basis and I sort of have to just stick to, and things will just happen for me. But in that context, I wasn't really fully appreciating one very important detail. And this detail is that the supreme rule of existence, the guiding principle that makes this whole existence possible in the way we experience it, is called a free will. And this free will that we have, as every individual has it, is the one thing that Krishna, God, will not touch. It's actually the one thing that doesn't belong to him. It's the one thing that we can decide to not surrender to him. It's the one thing that is really keeping us as, fully present as individuals, as our free will. And free will is only valid if our free decisions have consequences. If you would say you have free will, but nothing has consequences, well, this is sort of you're negating the free will. Because if I have the free will to punch you in the face and I do it and nothing happens, then actually I don't have a free will. I only have the free will if there is actually a reaction to my decision. Otherwise, it's not free will. Otherwise, I'm just basically in the limbo of can't do anything, just in the illusion of doing something. Right? So free will means that to have free will means that our free will bears consequences. Otherwise, there's no meaning to free will. So this is the base of our philosophy in Krishna consciousness, is that why are we here in this world? Because of our decision, to be here. And how do we get out of this free world? Well, if we simply change that decision. Well, how do we make decisions as pure souls? Well, through the expression of energy of the pure soul, which is called CET, consciousness. So right now, again, we decided to direct our consciousness on lust, on the concept that we can enjoy material existence. And now the choice that needs to be made is that I'm pulling my consciousness back towards spirit, that I want to that I use my free will to now say, no, I do not want to be engaged in this anymore, truly, but I will be engaged only in Krishna service. And this shift of consciousness is something that we have to do very consciously, because we are the only one who can do it. Krishna can support us in many, many ways, and he does at any moment of our time. Whatever step you take toward me, I take it back manifold. It's Krishna's promise. This is there, but without us taking the step like that. So it's really searching for our intention. Why do we practice what we practice? And what do we actually really want? And how do we, through our actions, through our karma yoga, express this desire on all levels of our life is essential for this to work. The idea that I can express my desires as I want and go to church on Sunday, and that sort of changes my decisions throughout all my rest of the life is illusionary. We can very easily understand that. But for my personal realization, I at one point understood, well, if my experience is all over the place, and I think I can negate that just by sitting down for a moment and chanting God's names, well, of course, there's a lot of benefits, there's a lot of mercy and so on, but I will still have to make that full choice. It will not be done for me. The practice will help me. The practice will allow me to even understand what is my consciousness and how can I redirect it. But to do it, I still have to do it. I still have to do it. It's very nice, actually. Krishna is giving us the full capacity to decide to do what we need to do. Now, this, I think, is quite important to understand. I'll try to explain it, make it a little bit more clear, the point I'm trying to make, and then we can discuss it later if you like. Sometimes we say, as devotees, we talk about ourselves as fallen, right? That the jivas in this world are fallen. And sometimes we interpret that word as quite a negative term. Oh, I'm fallen, I'm bad, I'm negative. But it might not be the best strategy to look at it like that. I think if the Vedas describe us as being fallen, it is not a judgment, but it is a neutral statement. It is trying to inform us, where are we at in this life? What is our position? Because even if you have the desire to move out of this world, and you get the map of, for example, the Vedas, which explain to you in great detail how to get out of this world, the most important thing you need to know to use that map, or any map, what's the most important thing we need to know? Not where we want to go, not how long it is, not the distance it is, but it is, where are we on that map? So the Vedas help us with that. Statements like you are fallen, they're not like, oh, you are fallen, you're bad, but they're like, okay, I want to inform you where you are at on that map. So you are in a fallen position. Like, for example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in some sense, he considered someone who is not a lakpati to be fallen, someone who does not chant 64 rounds. Well, this is not a statement of judgment for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's just informing us that if you cannot spend your day, possibly because you have so much taste for chanting, without at least chanting a few 100,000 names, well, then your consciousness is in a fallen state. This is just a mere fact. Interesting statement, isn't it? If we look at it like that a little bit. He's informing us where we're at so that we can then understand where we need to go. So, yes, we are maybe in a state of still being entrenched in this material experience and still being fallen by being fully sort of floating around in material existence, experiencing these shackles of sex life, as Prabhupada is saying it, or let's say these shackles of lusty desires at large. I mean, I don't know if you ever experienced that maybe sometimes there is a desire coming up for your personal sense gratification. Is that? Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. Could be. I cannot just judge others through my own experience of life, but for me, it is sort of a constant battle. It's coming up again and again. So I'm experiencing these shackles by now on a more subtle level, maybe not pornography while I'm chanting my rounds, but these sort of experiences of being held back is still there. Why? Because I am in a fallen position. Okay, wonderful. Let me accept that. Let me embrace that. Let me know where I'm at without judging me or without saying, oh, this is horrible, because in a sense, it's not. I had the free choice to engage myself in this virtual reality and experiencing this virtual material world. And it's a fun game, isn't it? Like it's sort of far out, you know, and you can become a demon, and I don't know, you can create all these alter egos that you can link into, like in the Matrix. Who hasn't watched a movie and thought like, wow, this is a really cool concept? Well, this is actually what's happening right now. This material world is a fascinating place. That's why it's so difficult to get out of it. If it would be like horrible, why would we still be here? There is something to explore here. There's something to experience, which is quite far out. This is illusion, right? Who doesn't like some illusion? Have you ever tried watching, a movie with your friends and, the lights are out, the popcorn's going, and then you get up and switch on the lights and says, oh, this is just illusion, they're actors, this is not even real. Would your friends appreciate that feedback? They would go like, yeah, we know that, now shut up and sit down. We want this illusion. We want to be in the illusion that this is not Tom Cruise, but this is, I don't know, James Bond. He didn't play him, I think. But anyway, you get the point, right? We want to be the illusion that, oh, this lady actually is right now in a romance drama, right? Leonardo DiCaprio in Jack in the Titanic, and the Titanic is actually sinking, and I can cry my eyes out because I allowed the illusion of identifying this complete illusionary piece of film material to, for a moment, I accept it as reality, to be in that bath, be in that rasa of experiencing it. Well, we are right now continuously watching the movie of material existence, and it's not a bad movie in many ways. Krishna is coming by as well also to play in it from time to time. So, okay, we made the choice to be engaged in this material experience. Through the engagement of the material experience and the samskaras, the mental impressions that we've accumulated, we are sort of almost bound to this experience. So many previous ideas of sense enjoyment just bind us to, yes, this place is actually a cool thing. And to accept that I am in a fallen position means I am attracted to the material world. It is a helpful starting point. And I personally find to judge you for it not such a helpful starting point. Much rather, do I want to stay or do I want to get out? And now if I want to get out, I have a wonderful starting point to say, okay, this is actually where I'm headed. This is actually what I'm not trying to do anymore. Okay, this movie is nice, but really to play outside in nature is much nicer. So let me actually go to where we're going. The idea of accepting where we're at in this world, I think, is quite essential. And I know that many devotees do a lot of work in this field of trying to accept the traumas we have, trying to accept the context we have, and then trying to, from there, work toward what is actually possible, be real in our practice. And this is something very important because to judge us through our external practice sometimes can be a bit tricky. And there I'd like to quote Jananivas Prabhu, which sort of my name father, and I really appreciate him deeply on a personal level. He's the head pujari in Mayapur, you might know. And he once explained in a lecture that Krishna is not so much bothered about our external expression of action. I mean, not that it's not important, obviously it is, otherwise the Vedas wouldn't give us so many hints how to do it. But really what is important is our internal intention, and what is actually our true desire in our heart. So to judge someone on their spiritual sincerity due to their external actions is very dangerous. Because think of that. Let's say through my material experience in my last few lives, I have very intense karma. Maybe I have the karma of being a drug addict for many lifetimes, and it's deeply ingrained in my samskaric field, in my field of mental impressions. And these shackles are really strongly holding me back. Now, for me, for example, if that's the case, to stay acting according to 4 regulated principles and chanting 16 rounds every day without ever falling down to something is a struggle like anything. I have to really bring all my strength into this activity to try to not be pulled back by these heavy duty shackles that I have put on, right? Whereas if I spent my last few lives living as a brahmana and maybe as a yogi in some cave or in a very sattvic environment, for me to live according to 4 principles is, well, the most normal thing. Why would I intoxicate myself? I don't want to lose my sattvic state of mind. I'm enjoying it quite a lot. Thank you. And well, to sit down and meditate for 2 hours each day and okay, let's chant Hare Krishna. Why not? Well, it doesn't seem to be a big challenge either. Actually, it's for me not even very difficult. And I feel very happy that I can just do that. And then I engage the rest of my day in however I want. Now, what Krishna sees here, as Jananivas Prabhu pointed out very nicely, is very much the struggle that we are going through. He will see that this devotee who is maybe externally is looking very well fallen, yes, because that's where he is, that's his position. again, not as a judgment, but just as a fact, that he is trying like anything, that his heart's desire is completely faced at letting go of these shackles and really opening up to Krishna consciousness, to spiritual experience. Whereas maybe the other person that externally seems to be like very, paka, as we say, right? Very fixed up, very, very clean. But the internal desire to actually move out of his stuffy state of consciousness and transcend material experience might be, compared to the other person, quite little. I'm not saying that that has to be the case, but I'm saying that that's why the Acharyas warn us again and again to not judge anyone. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, even if a person is in a fallen state, externally speaking, but his heart is still striving for pure Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered a sadhu. He is to be considered a sadhu because that internal desire, that he is still using his free will, his decision-making to say, I want to do my best, I want to work very hard to move out of this material experience and move into spiritual experience. Due to his fallen state, though, this work might be extremely hard, almost impossible. Nityananda Prabhu is seeing that. And Nityananda Prabhu goes like, hey, this guy is serious. This guy will give mercy. Or this lady. Or whoever is working hard. Not to say, if the Brahmana, of course, in his pure consciousness works very hard as well, even better. We have many like that in our movement. There's so many completely sattvic personalities who still dedicate every moment of their life to become even more Krishna consciousness, to like really challenge themselves as well. Well, Krishna sees that as well. It's not that you are lost if you're a sattvic person, not at all. It gives you actually a very good platform. It's like sometimes we say sattva is the airport from which we can board the plane to transcendence, right? Because it is the perfect soil to grow food. But if all you have is like really just a piece of sand and you still try your very best to like grow these tomatoes, well, Krishna sees that effort. Krishna sees what you are trying to accomplish through the choices of your free will. So I think this is very important to keep in mind, to be also, to not identify with our false ego. Oh, I can't do this, I am so fallen. It doesn't matter where you are. Being fallen is a qualification to practice yoga. Without being fallen, we wouldn't have to practice yoga. Yoga means huge, to connect. Yoga is the process of reconnecting. That means we are not connected. Yoga is only useful if we are not connected. It is if we are disconnected from our true reality, true identity, then we can reconnect through yoga. So therefore, we are the qualified ones if we are the unqualified ones. It's very nice. And often that is represented in the prayers from the Goswamis and so on. So yes, we are shackled. We are shackled by lust. We have lusty desires. We have the desire to engage in the material world. This desire is still there. It's deeply ingrained. It's the entry card to experience the material world through the false ego. That's the price you have to pay to let these desires into your heart. So this is a given. We have them. We have these shackles. Now our job is just to say, okay, whatever shackles I have, let me make an honest effort from where I am toward the Supreme. And also, please, let me honor that effort. Let me not fight against these shackles for years and years and then just like additionally beat myself down for not being as successful as the guy next to me. Let's be open in our heart. And if we have a full desire to serve Krishna and we are striving for it, even if it might be externally confusing sometimes, Krishna will see that, and we should be very sure of it. Otherwise, we're minimizing Krishna's capacity of mercy. And this is another thing I learned from Jananivas, very nice. He said that, there's so much mercy in this movement, but still that mercy is voluntary. If you engage in this process of bhakti and you tell Krishna, what I'm doing is not enough, well, Krishna is respecting that decision as well. But if I go like, Krishna, I'm doing everything I can for you, and I know, you tell me in so many parts of these scriptures, you tell me that you will take care of me, that I don't have to fear anything, that I can let go of any religious principle other than just connecting to you. If we really take that into our heart, Krishna will gladly fulfill his promise. But we have to also let him, because this is our power. Krishna will not touch our free will. It's the whole essence of the game between the jiva and the Supreme Self. It is the rasa. It is the very fact that we voluntarily can love God, that he appreciates that love the way he does. What would be love without free will? I love you so much, that's why I chain you to my chair, not let you go anywhere and keep you in my room. No, that's not love. Real love is to, I love you so much. Oh, you want to go? Well, I love you. I'll let you go. I'll always support you. If you want to come back, please do. And this is Krishna's mood. And we can very much meditate on that and very much appreciate it. And if we can then forgive ourselves for where we are and what we do, and just go like, let me now make a conscious decision to move toward Krishna, no matter what my external situation. Let me do it anyway. Let me do it anyway. Prabhupada had that view. When the hippie came and gave the toilet paper, completely drunk and out of space, Prabhupada said he made some spiritual advance. In his heart, there was some desire to serve Krishna. Krishna will see that and nothing else. So I think it's a nice point that I sort of didn't know I wanted to share tonight, but apparently I did somewhere. It was free flow, and it's approaching 8 o'clock. So I guess I'll shut up for now, and I hope I haven't offended too many of you. It's hard to see, I can't really see your faces, so I'm just hoping that something was there which was maybe interesting or inspiring. And if there's some questions or so, I guess that could work, right? I don't know. Can we do questions or comments or just feedback? Would be very interesting. Please give some feedback because I can't read your faces, so would be interesting for me. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah,
on
those of you who would like to ask a question, they can just unmute themselves, meaning they can click on the microphone icon at the bottom of the screen, and then they can just speak and say something.
Somehow you're very silent, that's why I'm coming close. So I'm not checking you out intensely, but I'm just wanting to see, to hear actually, if anyone has.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Haribol.
Haribol. It was a great class. Thank you so much. And could you say something about letting go and fully surrender to Krishna's plan? You were saying like, we decide what we do, but we have to do it, right? And
yes.
And we often say, I surrender to Krishna's plan and I like fully accept his plan, but we actually don't. Like I speak for myself. I always find myself back in, no, I want to have it in this way. I want to have it like now. And I want to have it like this and that. But this is not Krishna's plan, right? This is not accepting Krishna's plan. Could you say something about that and how I can be like, how I can do that?
Well, see, you already answered your own question actually. Because, hey, oh, my battery is low. Okay, I have to speak quickly. No, we'll still manage. This idea of, I like this, but this is how I would like it. Well, this is lusty. You see, this is that definition. This is this idea that I need it my way because I am the one that needs to, right? That. So this is actually quite interesting how subtle this lust becomes. This is where we can trace it. And this is actually the next verse in the Bhagavad Gita, I think it is, 340, I think it is. Krishna actually gives us a help because he explains, you can read it later maybe, he explains where the lust hides, in what places it hides, that it hides in the intellect, it hides in the mind. And this is very interesting because if we discover these thought patterns, then we discover these shackles, and then we start to know what we need to let go of. So if these thought patterns come up, the best thing you can do about it is just laugh and sort of check it yourself and go like, oh wow, cool. So this is my lusty desires here. This is where it's hiding. This is where it's happening. It's very nice. I just, one story comes to mind from our Guru Maharaj where he decided to once give me, I can give you a little darshan. This little gentleman here. Haribol! Can you see him? Yeah. He came to me through the mercy of my Guru Maharaj. And the thing was, I always wanted to worship Krishna in the form of Giriraj, because when I was traveling with him, you know, I was worshiping Giriraj and there was like this Giriraj bhav going on. At least that's what I thought. And so this Sheila wanted to come and I sort of was like, nah, first of all, I didn't want the responsibility. It's crazy. And then also at one point anyway, he was like, no, you need to and blah, blah, blah. But then I named you Jananivas sort of thing. You need to be a Brahmachari. You have no choice. And But then I was telling him, yeah, but Guru Maharaj, I always wanted to worship Giriraj. And he got really a little bit angry, and he was saying, if Krishna comes, you don't judge his form. It was very nice, you know, because true, like I prayed to worship Krishna, and there Krishna is, and I go like, Krishna, yeah, that's nice, but not like that. Because the thing is, you know, we have free will, but so does Krishna, and that we also have to respect. That's a mutual relationship. We can't go like, I have free will, so you know, because I want it that way, so Krishna, you have to make it that way, you know, because then we're not understanding the relationship. Then we are treating Krishna as an impersonal entity, as a demigod where we can just throw in some coins and get out the coke that we paid for. No, we also have to consider that Krishna is a personality, and he has the choice to do things the way that he wants to do them. And he will, you know, it will not his way or the highway. No, he is happy to negotiate with us, and we can see that very much. You get a clear offer from Krishna, like move to that, do that, and then you go like, no, don't want to do that, so you go the other way, and then you'll find Krishna is going like, oh my God, I had a perfect plan for you, you don't want to do it, oh gosh, okay, but I'm God, pretty good, you know, I'm quite intelligent, so I'll figure out another way how we can also work it out, and then he'll offer that. And then we again can go, I want this, or I don't want this. Krishna will work with us, but we also have to understand that Krishna also has his way. And Krishna has also his way of how he wants to deal with us and how he wants to play with us. And you know, playing, as we all know, it's from both sides. We need to also give him some slack and go like, okay, Krishna, let's do it like that. Maybe we can tweak it a little bit. Okay, we can talk about it later. Fair enough. But, you know, I also have to a little bit understand how he wants to roll. I always wanted a Sheila. Krishna goes like, great, here's your Sheila. I go like, no, Giriraj, come on, you know, Sheila is Sheila. Get over with it. And now, you know, it's the greatest blessing I have in my life. So I never regretted that exchange, obviously. But I don't know, is that answering your question a little bit, or is it too far off?
Nope. It's fine. Thank you. I work on it.
All right. Is there anything else we'd like to discuss?
We have a question
Yes,
from
ma'am.
our live audience here.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Okay, let's do live audience first, and then it's your time.
Oh, okay. I don't know, it's a comment and a little question. I just remember.
Sorry, Samara, this is very silent. Can you come a bit closer or speak up a little bit so that I can?
I remember me and my husband wandering around and chanting maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. We were on our way, and I got hungry, and I wanted to say, "Oh, I so want to cook something for Krishna," and I noticed it that I just wanted to eat. I wanted to enjoy, and I wanted to not be hungry anymore. And I have always the problem with this, because I know I want to enjoy prasadam, and because I have this thought already before it's become prasad. I always wonder, will Krishna even take it? Because I already desired it. So what to do about that?
Oh yeah, I really think that prasadam is, Krishna takes it twice. We offer it and he takes it. He'll take it if we offer it nicely. But I think the part he really enjoys is when we take it. Because the good thing with Krishna is whatever we taste, he tastes. He can taste through our mouth. So if we really enjoy prasadam, and now this is an important part in the devotee's life, check the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's like whole cooking recipes. There's like pages where Krishnadas Kaviraj spends like 100 verses just describing the different preparations and how the devotees ate them and so on. It is an important part to also really enjoy that, but we should enjoy it in the consciousness that I'm sitting down right now with Krishna. This is already offered to Krishna. I'm fully aware that this food is sort of infused with Krishna, and now it would be the greatest offense not to absolutely love the experience of it, because loving the experience of taking that food will actually enhance Krishna's experience of taking that food. He takes it as we take it. And this is not just my speculation. I have another pastime for you. I was once with my Guru Maharaj. I was traveling a little for some time with him to help a little bit out. I'm not sure if I made things worse. I'm still trying to figure that out. But anyway, it was a nice time. And we were at the airport and we were going down, and he bought a pack of Fisherman's Friend, the bona fide ones, obviously. And we sat down in the lounge, and you know, he sort of casually asked me, hey, Jananivas, do you want a Fisherman Friend? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love one. And he gave me one and I ate it. And he was sort of watching me weirdly for a whole while. And at one point he asked, like, did you finish it? And I was like, yeah. And he said, oh, Krishna accepts his prasadam through the mouth of the brahmanas. Now I can take it as well. And then he took one. Sort of very sweet pastime. Because we have that statement in the Vedas that Krishna, that if the brahmana takes the bhoga even, it becomes prasadam. Why? Because the brahmana is in pure consciousness. So he eats, he knows that Krishna is having that very same experience, so he's eating together with Krishna. And for me, that is a really nice meditation when taking anything to eat. Well, if I can manage, I'm not saying that I'm always in the consciousness, but if I can remember to think like, whenever I eat with Krishna, because Krishna is in my heart. Krishna is the governor of my senses, Rishikesh. So whatever I experience through my senses, I can enjoy it, he can enjoy it. I don't know if that's helpful. I'm not quite sure. It's difficult to do it.
Yeah.
one of my Shiksha gurus once, he was drinking a ginger. I maybe shouldn't tell that story. No, all right. Never mind. I'll tell you in private if you're curious. But not on the live recording.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. F. in Engel. There was a question.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your clear words. Is it possible to get a contact to you? I want to ask you something private because you are a yoga teacher. I want to ask you something about some health problems.
Oh, health problems. All right, my favorite. Sure.
Yes, I'm in this as a similar profession. I'm a qigong teacher.
Okay, cool, nice. That's fun. One of my best friends is qigong style, Sadbucha. So sure. I'm not sure how we do that. Can we like? I think there's a Facebook post about this, and I'm linked in that Facebook post also. You just click on that. You send me a friend request and a message. Does that work for you? Can we connect via Facebook?
I'm not so expert on Facebook.
All right. Or
Shavanti, she can do that for you.
I can arrange this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Or if you can just send her my email or my WhatsApp or something, or my phone number, maybe. All good. We know who you are now, so we'll get in touch.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for asking. Okay, everyone happy? Someone wants to say something? This works, huh? I sort of there was a flow. It's far out how you know. It proves that we are spirit and not these material bodies. I can look into a screen and still get inspired about Krishna consciousness. Far out. And here he's even wearing gloves. Wow. Sorry.
Because I'm handling food, that's why.
Yeah, good.
Hare
Who is
Krishna.
there? Hey, Hare Krishna.
So please accept my humble obeisances. I liked your class so much.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was really awesome, and you talked a lot of things, and practically I can somehow connect your experience with me. So my question is, Prabhu, when I'm trying to chant and I have some bad past, for let's say in my bachelor studies I had some political issues, you know, those kind of things, friends and enemies, foes kind of things. But when I'm chanting, I'm not even thinking about anything, but sometimes those kind of things come into my mind, and it makes so many distress, and I feel so much guilty in myself for doing those kind of things and having those kind of experiences. But I don't know how to deal with those kind of experiences, and those things somehow put me in a situation that I have to pause chanting for some times or take some deep breaths, something like that. And yeah, and one more thing I just want to add with sometimes during chanting some lasty desires, it may be, yeah, like I should buy a new mobile, I should do it. Yeah, I basically my laptop is not.
I just bought a new mobile, which was a great idea. Otherwise, I couldn't have this class in such an easy way. So
Okay.
yeah, please continue.
So yeah, this I think right now what mobile phone I have, I can still continue. But yeah, the thing is this kind of desires.
Yes.
Not only mobile. let's say other things. It's like exponential desires. So that's the problem, and I don't know how to deal with those kind of desires. If you can give me some insights about that thing, it will be so.
I can try.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I think most of us in this context probably can relate to what Prabhu just shared, that okay, I was sharing this porn experience chanting thing, and of course that was a very extreme experience because it was there in the purport, but of course this becomes much more, there's a lot more subtle forms of that. Ice cream, for example. But there's other forms of that, and these are these shackles that keep us away from just fully focusing on Krishna, because the Maha Mantra is perfect. All we need to do is, when I once asked Satchidananda Swami, because we sort of have a nice relationship, about if he can give me a hint on chanting. And you might have heard this because I heard him say it again, but it was a nice moment because he said, yeah, I can give you 3 hints. And he said, listen, listen, and listen. Right? This is really all we really have to do. The problem is, can we do it? Can we be fully conscious of what we are connecting to? And this is again where we talk about these shackles, where we really want to do that, but somehow or other we are not able to. I liked what you say in the beginning. You said, I'm thinking nothing, but then the thoughts come up. Actually, this is brilliant, the way you expressed it, because this is something we first have to understand, that our thinking is not really our thinking. We have literally a TV screen in front of our consciousness where these thoughts are displayed. It's like a river of thoughts where we sit on the shore and we can just basically see these thoughts go. We are not our thoughts. Thoughts are external items. They're external material products which we are observing. Just like when you're chanting, there might be a cat walking by which is taking your awareness. Similarly, as we are chanting, a thought is walking by, and when we are not careful, it will catch our awareness. We are not those thoughts. We are not those memories. We have to very much remember that. We are not those emotions. We are not these desires. These are our desires, our emotions, our thoughts. And if something's mine, it's not me. Of course, this is basic philosophy now, but sometimes it's really good to remember that while we're in the practice. This is one point. Another point is that sometimes Chetu Darpana Marjanam, chanting is the cleaning of the heart. Now, if you start to clean a very dirty place, first it will seem like it gets more dirty. If you start to sweep a very dusty place, the dust will be all over the place. It will surface. It will actually come out more prominently. This is also important to remember, because oftentimes when we are chanting, sometimes it's tough to judge the chanting through the experience of the chanting, because the Maha Mantra might just make a major cleanup in our heart. And the thing is, again, in order to let things go, we have to experience them, because Krishna might clean our heart, but he will not just throw things away. He will go like, do you need that still? You sure? Should I put it back? Put it, okay, put that. This one? No? Okay, let's go. All right. This one? All right. He might help us. He might inspire us to make the right choice, but still we have to make that choice. So we do have to relive all our desires in order to let them go. Again, this process is not passive. It is an active decision we have to take again and again. So sometimes really intense chanting in terms of being utterly disturbed can be a good sign of a lot is happening, a lot is coming out. And I'm just a big fan of positive thinking, because there's no point in really trying hard in 16 rounds and then really being super upset with oneself that we couldn't focus. Appreciate that porn and that mobile phone and that car and that ice cream and go like, wow, these are my desires. I have to look at them in order, but Krishna, please, now it's enough. Take them away. I see them. I don't want them. Let them go. There's maybe another point here. But then I think the third point, as devotees, personally, I find, is that we really sometimes don't make a very good effort to chant. Sorry to say. This is my own experience, but also my own observation, is that sometimes we really sit down, take a beat back, and go for it. Now, there is so many factors that we can consider that would actually really help to increase our experience of chanting. For example, breathing, just to give a very simple one. My breath is directly connected to my mind, right? If I'm sad, no, sorry, not a good. If I'm angry, what happens to my breath? It gets hot and fast, right? If I'm super peaceful on a Sunday morning, what's with my breath? It's slow and calm, right? My state of my mind is directly represented by the state of my breath. And that works both ways. So if I breathe in a way that is like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Sorry, but I'm just saying, if I have such a breathing pattern in my chanting, I'm triggering my mind into like, wow, something really far out dangerous is happening and we should be all over the place, really. Simple things like respecting the breath. There's a reason why we find Sanatana Goswami suggesting pranayama before Gayatri, because like using proper breathing patterns can help us to chant more calmly. And there's many, many more things we can do. There's many, many more things that we can do about our chanting to increase its quality. Because the chanting also what our responsibility is to make it the prominent thing in our mind and to really do our best and really research. And
well, it seems we have lost the connection to Jananivas. His battery must have given up. You.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, I made my point. Sorry. It was a long answer anyway. But I think these are 3 points I can share. And the last point that I'm really passionate about is this: let's increase the quality of our chanting. And let's really find ways to do it in a very progressive way. Not just let me concentrate more, but also how do we do it? How do we use the mind? What circumstances can we put ourselves in? And how can we understand these topics better? It's my passion. If anyone's interested in techniques for japa, I'm fully up for it. Okay, sorry, this is me. I think,
so that means that we will have another session with you for japa and increasing the quality of our chanting. Hopefully very soon.
Maybe he will come to Berlin.
Or maybe he will come to Berlin as well. We don't know. So thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
this was fun. Thanks for having me.
Jananivas Prabhu ki jai!
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thanks for hanging out, even online.